I always thought paradise would feel warmer. Standing here at the entrance of Sunset Shores Resort in Malibu, with its marble fountains sparkling under the California sun and palm trees swaying like they're auditioning for a postcard, I should feel like I belong. But the truth? I feel like a kid who snuck into the grown-ups' party. My faded jeans and slightly wrinkled blouse, picked because it was the only thing clean after weeks of planning a charity gala, aren't exactly screaming VIP. And the way the resort manager, Vanessa Brooks, is staring at me? Yeah, I might as well be wearing a paper bag. The lobby is a cathedral of luxury. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows on the polished floor, and the air smells like jasmine and money. I clutch my reservation confirmation, a gift from my husband, Nathan, who insisted I take this weekend to unwind after raising a record-breaking $2 million for kids' literacy programs.
You deserve the world.
Ellie, he'd said, his hazel eyes crinkling with that smile that still makes my knees weak after 5 years of marriage. But right now, with Vanessa's perfectly manicured eyebrow arched so high it could touch the chandelier, I'm wondering if I deserve to even be in this lobby. Ma'am, Vanessa says. Her voice is smooth as the silk scarf around her neck but sharp enough to cut glass. I'm afraid there's been a mistake. This resort is exclusively for our elite guests. She glances at my scuffed sneakers, her lips curling like she just smelled expired milk. Perhaps you meant to book at the motel down the highway? I feel my cheeks burn. The kind of heat that creeps up when you're 12 and the cool kids laugh at your thrift store backpack. Deep breath. Ellie, I tell myself, I've faced worse. Like that time I worked the concierge desk at a 5-star hotel and a guest threw a fit because his room didn't have an ocean view on the first floor. But this stings different. Maybe because I thought I'd left those days behind. I have a reservation, I say, holding out my phone with the email from Nathan. My voice is steady, but inside, I'm a mess. Why didn't I wear that dress Nathan bought me? The one that makes me feel like I could walk a red carpet? Vanessa takes my phone like it's contagious, her French-tipped nails clicking against the screen. She scans it, then hands it back with a smile that doesn't reach her ice blue eyes. I'm sorry, but we have no record of this, she says, loud enough for the couple nearby, Chad and Brittany, decked out in matching designer athleisure like they're about to star in a reality show, to overhear. Brittany giggles, whispering something to Chad, who smirks and pulls out his phone, probably to post about the nobody causing a scene. An older woman, dripping in pearls and kindness, glances my way with a flicker of sympathy. I want to disappear, but I plant my feet. Nathan booked this. I belong here, don't I? Maybe I should call him. I think, my fingers brushing the simple silver bracelet he gave me on our first anniversary. Time is the real luxury, he'd said, fastening it on my wrist. And I want to spend all of mine with you. But he's in a board meeting in San Francisco, probably charming a room full of suits. I'm on my own, for now. So, there I was, standing in paradise, feeling like an outsider. Have you ever been judged for how you look? Not who you are? Drop a comment below and let me know. Where are you watching this from? Stay tuned, because this story's about to take a turn you won't believe. If there's a manual for how to feel like you're shrinking into the floor, I must have memorized it in that moment. Vanessa Brooks, with her glossy blonde hair pulled into a bun so tight it could double as a facelift, stood behind the reception desk like a queen passing judgment. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, each click sounding like a tiny gavel slamming down on my dignity. No reservation under Harper, she announced, her voice carrying across the lobby like she was auditioning for a villain role in a soap opera. I'm afraid you'll need to leave. Ma'am? Leave? The word hit me like a slap. I'd spent weeks dreaming about this weekend, sipping a mimosa by the infinity pool, feeling the ocean breeze, maybe even pretending I was the kind of woman who belonged in a place like Sunset Shores Resort. Nathan had promised me a slice of heaven, and now I was being kicked out before I could even taste it. My throat tightened, and I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Don't cry, Ellie. Not here. Not in front of her. I tried to keep my voice steady. There has to be a mistake. I said, pushing my phone toward her again. My husband booked this. It's a suite. Under Nathan Caldwell. The second I said his name, Vanessa's lips twitched, like she was swallowing a laugh. Chad and Brittany, the Instagram couple from hell, didn't bother hiding theirs. Brittany's giggle was sharp enough to cut glass, and Chad leaned in, whispering loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. Husband? Bet he's a used car salesman with big dreams? I felt my face burn. The kind of heat that makes you want to crawl under a rock. Why didn't I just wear something nicer? I thought, glancing down at my faded jeans. I looked like I'd wandered in from a farmer's market. Not like the wife of a billionaire. But that's the thing, I've never felt like Mrs. Caldwell, the billionaire's wife. I'm just Ellie, the girl who used to work 12-hour shifts at a hotel desk, smiling through guests' tantrums. I thought I'd earned my place here, but Vanessa's icy stare said otherwise. Sweetie, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. People book fake reservations all the time. Why don't you try the Budget Inn down the road? You'll be much more comfortable there. The word comfortable landed like a dart, and the lobby seemed to close in around me. A businessman in a tailored suit glanced up from his laptop, smirking. A young mom pushing a stroller looked away, embarrassed for me, but the older woman with the pearls, Mrs. Grayson, I'd later learn, caught my eye and gave me a small nod, like she'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. I wanted to scream that I belonged here, that my husband owned this place, for heaven's sake. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to prove I was enough on my own. So I stood there, rooted to the spot, as Vanessa motioned for a security guard. This isn't over, I told myself. Not yet. I sank into a plush armchair in the corner of the Sunset Shores Resort lobby. My beat-up suitcase slouched beside me like a friend who'd given up on the fight. The security guard Vanessa had summoned lingered nearby, his walkie-talkie crackling like a nervous cough. He looked more uncomfortable than intimidating, probably wishing he was anywhere but here. Me too, buddy. The weight of Vanessa's smirk and the lobby's prying eyes pressed down on me, making my little corner feel like the last stand in a war I didn't sign up for. I pulled out my phone and dialed Nathan. His voicemail kicked in. That deep, steady voice promising a call back soon. I could almost see him in San Francisco, commanding a boardroom with that effortless charm, his hazel eyes catching the light. God, I miss him. Hey, babe. I whispered into the phone. They're saying there's no reservation. Call me when you can. I hung up, my fingers tracing the silver bracelet he'd given me on our first anniversary. Time is the real luxury, he'd said, his hands warm against mine. Right now, time felt like a trap, each second stretching out as Vanessa's cold stare drilled into me from across the lobby. My chest tightened with a familiar ache. Do I even belong here? I'd spent years climbing out of my old life, 12-hour shifts at a hotel desk, smiling through guest meltdowns over missing bathrobes or lukewarm coffee. Marrying Nathan had changed my world, but not that nagging voice in my head. The one whispering I'd always be the girl in second-hand sneakers, out of place among chandeliers and champagne. Vanessa's rejection felt like proof. Then, a small miracle happened. Sophie, the young front desk clerk with a crooked name tag and a shy smile, slipped over with a glass of water. I believe you, she murmured, her eyes flicking toward Vanessa, who was busy fawning over a new guest in a designer suit. These mix-ups happen. Don't let her get to you. Her kindness was like a warm blanket on a cold night, pulling me back from the edge. I managed a nod. Thanks, Sophie. You're a lifesaver. As Sophie darted back to her post, the older woman with the pearls, Mrs. Grayson, approached, her cane tapping softly on the marble floor. Don't let them steal your spark, dear, she said, her voice low and steady. I was mistaken for a waitress at a charity ball once, in a dress I'd sewn myself. I smiled and bought the whole auction table to remind them who I was. She gave a sly smile, and I let out a quiet laugh, the tension in my shoulders easing just a bit. Sophie's water and Mrs. Grayson's words were like sparks in the dark. Nathan would sort this out, he always did. But more than that, I felt a fire kindling inside me. I wasn't just Nathan's wife. I was Ellie Harper. And I'd earned my place. Vanessa could smirk all she wanted. I wasn't going anywhere. The Sunset Shores resort lobby felt like a stage. And I was the unwilling star of a drama I hadn't auditioned for. Vanessa Brooks stood behind her polished desk, her arms crossed like a general about to exile a trespasser. The security guard shuffled closer, his face screaming, "I'd rather be anywhere else." I couldn't blame him. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure the chandeliers were rattling. But I wasn't moving. Not after Vanessa's smug budget-in jab. Not after Chad and Brittany's snickers. Not after the whole lobby turned my dream weekend into a public roast. "You need to leave now." "Ma'am," Vanessa said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the marble floor. "We can't have unverified guests disrupting our elite clientele." Elite clientele? I wanted to laugh. The only thing elite about this moment was the level of pettiness. Chad, lounging on a velvet sofa with Brittany draped over him like a designer scarf. Piped up. Maybe she's here for a YouTube prank. Get it over with. "Lady?" Brittany giggled, already filming me with her phone, probably dreaming of viral clout. The businessman from earlier smirked over his laptop, and even the young mom with the stroller looked away, like my humiliation was contagious. I felt my hands shake, but I planted my feet and lifted my chin. "You faced worse, Ellie," I told myself, like the guest who threw a martini glass at me because his room wasn't feng shui enough. I'd survive that. I could survive this. "I'm not leaving," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "My reservation is valid, and I'm staying until you fix this." The words hung in the air, bold and reckless, like I'd just tossed a match into a pile of dry leaves. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, her perfect red lipstick curling into a sneer. "Security, escort her out," she snapped, waving a hand like she was dismissing a servant. The guard took a hesitant step forward, but before he could reach me, the lobby door swung open with a whoosh that silenced the room. Every head turned, including mine. And there he was, Nathan Caldwell, striding in like he owned the place. Which, he did. Nathan was a vision in a charcoal gray suit, his broad shoulders filling the doorway, his dark hair catching the light just right. At 42, he carried himself with the kind of confidence that didn't need to shout, the kind that made boardrooms hush and competitors sweat. His hazel eyes scanned the lobby, sharp and unyielding, landing on me with a flicker of concern that melted my resolve for a split second. "Oh, Nathan, you and your terrible timing," I thought, half wanting to hug him, half wanting to hide under my suitcase. The room froze. Vanessa's sneer faltered, her hand still raised like a conductor who'd lost her orchestra. Chad's phone drooped in his hand, and Brittany's jaw dropped so fast I half expected it to hit the floor. Mrs. Grayson, perched elegantly on a nearby chair, gave a knowing smile, like she'd been waiting for the plot twist. I stood there, my heart racing, knowing everything was about to change. Nathan's gaze locked on Vanessa, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but heavy, like thunder rolling in from the ocean. "Is there a problem with my wife's reservation?" The Sunset Shores resort lobby went so quiet you could have heard a champagne flute drop. Nathan stood there, his voice still echoing. "Is there a problem with my wife's reservation?" And the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Vanessa Brooks, who'd been ruling this lobby like a dictator in stilettos, froze mid-gesture, her hand hovering like she'd forgotten what to do with it. Her ice blue eyes widened, and for the first time, that smug smirk was nowhere to be found. "Oh, Vanessa, you have no idea what's coming," I thought, my heart doing a weird mix of cartwheels and panic. Nathan's gaze didn't waver, pinning Vanessa to her spot behind the desk. Chad and Brittany, the Instagram royalty, were suddenly obsessed with their shoelaces, their phones forgotten. "Mrs." Grayson leaned back in her chair, her pearl necklace glinting as she gave a subtle nod, like she was watching her favorite play unfold. I wanted to hug Nathan, to thank him for showing up like some knight in a tailored suit, but I also wanted to disappear. Why does he always make an entrance like this? I thought, half laughing inside. It's like he's allergic to subtle. Your wife? Vanessa stammered, her voice cracking like cheap glass. She glanced at me, then back at Nathan, her brain clearly scrambling to catch up. Mr. Caldwell, I had no idea. There must be a system error. Her French-tipped nails clutched the desk, and I swear I saw a bead of sweat ruin her perfect makeup. Nathan raised an eyebrow, just enough to make the room feel 10 degrees colder. A system error? He said, his tone calm but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Or did you assume my wife didn't belong here because she doesn't look like your typical guest? The lobby gasped, actually gasped, like we were in a soap opera. Chad's face turned the color of his overpriced latte, and Brittany stuffed her phone into her purse like it was evidence. I felt my cheeks burn, not from shame this time, but from a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. Nathan, you don't have to do this, I thought. But he was already in motion, stepping closer to me, his hand brushing my arm with a warmth that steadied my shaking knees. Let me clarify, Nathan said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd built an empire from scratch. Ellie Harper is not only my wife, but one of the finest concierges this company ever had. 10 years ago, she saved a guest's life at our Chicago property, noticed his heart attack symptoms before he did and got him to a hospital. She was promoted to head concierge at 24, a record. He looked at me, his hazel eyes softening. That's who you dismissed. My jaw dropped. I mean, I knew the story, but hearing Nathan say it like that, in front of everyone, made it feel like I was meeting myself for the first time. The businessman shut his laptop. Mrs. Grayson clapped softly, her smile wide. Vanessa's face was now a shade of gray I didn't know existed. Mr. Caldwell, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I'll fix this immediately. Nathan held up a hand, silencing her. You'll do more than that, he said, his voice low and final. You'll apologize to my wife. Now. The room held its breath, and I stood there, caught between the woman I'd been and the one Nathan saw in me, knowing nothing would ever be the same. The Sunset Shores resort lobby felt like it had been hit by a tidal wave, and Nathan was the storm that changed everything. Vanessa Brooks stood behind her desk, her once impeccable poise reduced to a trembling mess, her hands gripping the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her apology came out in a rush, her voice wobbling like a bad karaoke performance. Mrs. Caldwell, I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding, she said, barely meeting my eyes. Misunderstanding? I thought, biting back a laugh. That's one way to spin it. But I just nodded, letting her stew in the silence. I'd spent years as a concierge, smiling through worse insults. I could handle this. Nathan's hand rested lightly on my back, his touch grounding me as the lobby watched, still reeling from his bombshell. Chad and Brittany had slunk to the edge of the room, their influencer swagger replaced by the kind of awkwardness you see when someone's caught cheating at poker. Mrs. Grayson's eyes twinkled with approval, her cane tapping a soft rhythm of victory. Even the businessman, who'd smirked at me earlier, was now pretending to study a potted palm. Take a good look, folks, I thought. This is what happens when you bet on the wrong horse. Nathan wasn't done. He turned to Vanessa, his voice steady but laced with an authority that made the air feel heavier. Effective immediately, all Caldwell Resort staff will undergo mandatory training on respect and inclusion, he said. You, Ms. Brooks, will be the first to enroll. Consider it a chance to rethink your approach to hospitality. Vanessa's face went from gray to ghostly, her lips parting like she wanted to protest but couldn't find the words. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then Nathan turned to me, his hazel eyes softening in a way that always made my heart skip. Ellie, he said, loud enough for the room to hear, I've been planning to create a new role at Caldwell Resorts, Director of Guest Experience. There's no one more qualified than you. Your years as a concierge. Your heart for people. And well, today's little adventure. He smiled. That crinkle-eyed smile that still felt like a gift. My jaw dropped. Director? Me? I'd gone from being kicked out to being handed the keys to the kingdom in 10 minutes flat. I glanced at Sophie. The young clerk who'd slipped me that glass of water? Her eyes were wide, her crooked name tag glinting with pride. Sophie, Nathan added. You're promoted to Ellie's assistant. Your kindness didn't go unnoticed. Sophie blushed, stammering a thank you, and I felt a warmth spread through me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about changing things, making sure no one else felt the way I had an hour ago. Vanessa mumbled another apology, her voice barely audible, and shuffled off to check the system as Nathan instructed. The lobby slowly came back to life, whispers rippling through the crowd. I stood there, my old suitcase still at my feet, feeling like I'd just stepped into a new version of myself. Ellie Harper, Director of Guest Experience, I thought. Testing the words. Not bad for a girl in secondhand sneakers. The world felt softer as Nathan drove us away from Sunset Shores Resort, the Malibu coastline stretching out like a painting under the golden glow of dusk. He'd insisted on taking me somewhere special, a place he called ours. I leaned back in the leather seat of his sleek black SUV, my old suitcase tucked in the trunk, and let the ocean breeze through the open window tangle my hair. After the lobby showdown, I was exhausted, but Nathan's hand on mine, steady and warm, made me feel like I could breathe again. How does he always know what I need? I wondered, stealing a glance at his profile. The silver at his temples catching the fading light. We pulled up to a cliffside villa, a hidden gem nestled above the Pacific, its glass walls reflecting the sunset like a jewel. Welcome to our retreat, Nathan said, his hazel eyes crinkling with that smile that still made my heart trip over itself. The villa was breathtaking, white stone floors, a sprawling deck with an infinity pool, and the sound of waves crashing below. I stepped onto the deck, my sneakers squeaking against the polished surface, and felt like I'd walked into a dream. This is ours? I thought, half expecting to wake up back in my old one-bedroom apartment. Scheduling concierge shifts, Nathan poured us each a glass of Pinot Noir, the wine catching the sunset's reds and golds. We sat on the deck, the ocean stretching endless before us, and I finally let the day's wait slip away. You didn't have to do all that back there, I said, my voice soft. The training, the job offer, I just wanted to check in, Nathan chuckled, low and warm, like he knew something I didn't. Ellie, I've been planning that director role for months. Today just gave me a chance to make a point. I sipped my wine, the taste rich and grounding. I've always wanted to prove myself on my own, I admitted, my fingers tracing the silver bracelet he'd given me years ago, not as Mrs. Caldwell, but as Ellie Harper, the girl who worked her way up. Nathan set his glass down and took my hand, his touch as steady as the cliffs beneath us. I fell in love with that girl, he said, the one who treated every guest like they mattered, from the CEO to the janitor. Back when I was just a guest at your hotel, you taught me what real dignity looks like. My eyes stung, and I blinked hard, not wanting to cry. I remembered those days, me in a stiff concierge uniform, Nathan in a suit, asking for restaurant recommendations with a smile that made my day. You never doubted me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Even when I doubted myself. He leaned closer, his forehead touching mine. And I never will. You're going to change Caldwell Resorts. Ellie, I just gave you the stage. The waves crashed below, and I felt something shift inside me, a quiet strength, like the ocean itself. I wasn't just Nathan's wife or the girl in secondhand sneakers. I was Ellie Harper, and I was ready for whatever came next. The stars were out now, glittering above our cliffside villa like they'd been invited to celebrate the day's wild ride. I stood on the deck, the ocean's rhythm steady below, my glass of Pinot Noir long forgotten on the table. Nathan was inside, answering a quick call, but his presence lingered in the air, like the warmth of a fire you can still feel after it's gone. I leaned against the railing, my silver bracelet catching the moonlight, and let the truth settle in. I wasn't the same Ellie Harper who'd walked into Sunset Shores Resort that morning, clutching a reservation and a shaky sense of belonging. Looking back, I could almost laugh at how small I'd felt under Vanessa's sneer, how Chad and Brittany's giggles had stung like paper cuts. But those moments, as brutal as they were, led me here to a new role, a new purpose, and a reminder of who I am. I'd spent so long trying to prove I was enough, not just as Nathan's wife but as Ellie, the girl who'd clawed her way up from a one-bedroom apartment and a concierge desk. Today, Nathan hadn't just defended me. He'd held up a mirror, showing me the woman I'd always been, the one who saved a guest's life, who raised millions for kids' books, who stood her ground when the world told her to leave. I thought about Sophie, her crooked name tag and quiet courage, now my partner in changing Caldwell resorts. I thought about Mrs. Grayson, her sly wisdom proving that dignity outlasts judgment. Even Vanessa, crumbling under the weight of her own arrogance, was a lesson in what happens when you measure people by their shoes instead of their hearts. We all have a story, I realized, and it's never written on the surface. Nathan stepped onto the deck, his suit jacket off, his sleeves rolled up like he was ready to build something new with me. Ready to take on the world. "Director Harper?" he asked, his voice teasing but proud. I laughed, the sound freer than it had been all day. "Only if you're there to make the grand entrances." I shot back, and he pulled me close. The ocean's song wrapping around us. This was our retreat. Not just a place, but a promise to keep seeing each other, to keep fighting for what's right. I turned to the stars, feeling lighter, stronger. If I could leave one mark on the world, it'd be this. Never judge someone by how they look or where they stand in line. Everyone's got a story worth hearing, a value no one can take away. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful for it. And I hope, wherever you are, you'll remember it too. So that's my story. From a rejected reservation to a new chapter I never saw coming. Have you ever been judged unfairly, only to prove them wrong? Drop a comment below and share your moment. I'd love to hear it. And let me know where you're watching from. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's remind the world that dignity is the real luxury, and it belongs to us all. Thanks for being here until the next story.